Hello and welcome, everyone. Thank you, Hank, for joining us. We're here to talk about an exciting topic, mostly focused on cybersecurity, penetration testing, and how Secwatch has really differentiated itself in the market with layering on project management, which is uniquely aligned with some of the offerings at Tresorit. And so I'm Aaron Stillman. I'm the head of product marketing and lifecycle management. And I'll hand it over to you, Hank, to introduce yourself.
Yeah, thank you. I'm Henk-Jan Angerman from Secwatch, one of the co-founders. Basically, my role is visionary, so adopting new tech and new stuff and translate it to the business. And on top of that, I do some operations in penetration testing. Yeah,
That's one of the things maybe I think would really help everyone who is watching is to better understand a little bit about SecWatch. Can you talk just for a moment about the company, why you founded it, and how everything has sort of evolved over the years for you?
sure. Secwatch is a security consultancy company with main focus on offensive security penetration testing, assessments, and operations, for example. That means that our work is highly project based and always almost invites sensitive information, close collaboration with customers, which needs a good project management situation. Secwatch was actually founded in 2005. Before that, we did a lot of projects around antivirus, firewalls, stuff like that. But more and more customers wanted to know if the implementation of these software and hardware solutions were done right. And yeah, we basically moved to more and more consultancy test projects, which evolved into Secwatch being solely focused on this matter.
And I know in one of our earlier conversations you shared a statistic with me, but I don't remember 100%. How many penetration tests are you and the company handling on a it was like 200 or 400 or
Yeah, Secwatch currently with current team is about 200 penetration tests or assessments a year. This figure does exclude very small kind of testing environments. But yeah, that's about what we do a year. Yeah.
we've been working together, Tresorit and Secwatch, for a long time, so we're pretty intimately aware that in addition to penetration testing, you also offer the market services around certifications, compliance, and things of that nature. Could you just talk a little bit about what role Secwatch plays in that regard?
Yeah, one of the things we do is that we look into the market, what kind of products and solutions are there. And of course, you speak with a lot of customers and the problems they face. And basically, what I do is do a match with one or two or maybe three solutions that I think could match the customer and then pitch it for them. What does differentiate us is that we won't be doing implementation and we won't be fixing stuff. There's other companies and other people that are way better than that. So basically, we do advise and kind of help the customer make a more better solution selection to use new technology because we see that there's thousands of solutions out there and not everyone knows how to navigate that forest.
Yep. And I think with the way technology has continued to evolve, there's just more and more solutions that come to the market with, the rise of vibe coding and all of these new innovations. I think it's only going to become a more crowded market.
Yeah.
So what what I love about the sort of preparation calls we were having leading up to this is you really started to articulate the fact that SecWatch differentiates on project management. And
Yeah.
that surprised me as not someone who was expecting to hear that. And I would just love if you could talk more about why is that part of your DNA? What are the two sort of types of customers that, value having a very project-oriented company working with them?
Yeah, well, obviously from marketing, we do a lot of reviews with customers because we're highly technical and most of the customers not necessarily. So that means that we have two type of customers. So the more mature customers who know what they're doing, who know what, about InfoSec, have procedures in place, have done penetration testing, etc., for maybe years and have specialists in house. But we do also have a lot of customers that do not have that. And you need to guide those customers. You need to help them in the process. So, sometimes we see that a penetration test is just a one-off. The project starts, it's silent for 2 or 3 weeks, and then the report comes, and that's about it. So here's the report, success. And we don't want to do that. We want to be a partner to the customer and actually, take them along into the journey. Um, and this means that project management is very important. Actually, it's I think one of the most important things. Um, Before a project starts, you need to have credentials in place, maybe the scoping, some legal stuff needs to be in place, etc. And you can't assume that all customers know these processes and know how to handle them internally. So we basically take their hand and help them through that journey. Escalating maybe a critical that needs to be fixed right away needs that you might need to pause the project. And that, of course, has implications on availability on our side, but also on the customer side. And you have to really defend if you tell the customer you can't go through with this project, you need to stop right now. And that could be implications on all kinds of stuff like time to market or whatever. So you need to really be aware of key communications and a platform that helps you do that, an easy one.
Mm.
So that's very important for us. Yeah.
And, you know, obviously Secwatch has been very successful as you've grown over the years. How would you attribute, the project management and the trust factor and everything that you just described to that success? I mean, is it, yeah, what are your thoughts about how much that's played a role in the growth of the company?
I think that when we first started, it was typically, start a project, do your magic, deliver a report that's probably being read as total magic. And the customer didn't really know, okay, so what do I have to do? What's the next step? And I always ask customers on every project, even if I'm on site with them, at the end of the day, I ask them, any feedback? Were you happy? We like happy customers, and everybody does. And I always, try to get that negotiation in to find out what the quirks were. So, without being annoying, I ask, "Are you truly happy, or is anything we could have done better?" And one of the things typically is indeed communication, often the case, and of course, project management. So really taking that customer journey and keep them up to date and up to speed, what you're doing. Because it's a highly specialized, branch we're doing, and most of the guys and girls are really good at what they do. But one of the things they typically don't do is communicate. So you need to be really on top of that. So it's treating project management as a security discipline, basically. Um, in the projects we have equal status with the customer. We need to have equal ground in trust because um, we see and hear and feel and look almost everything from a customer. So if there's no trust, there's basically no project. You know what I mean? So if there's unclarity about, us as people or the project or how we handle their data or intellectual property or whatever, this is an issue. And with Engage and with Tresorit, we were really moving forward in data destruction because I don't want to have 200 plus security reports with all the assumed data that's going with it. on a big pile of dust there or something, because that would mean that if we would be hacked, and even we can be hacked, let's be real, it's end of game. You're out.
Yeah.
You can't recover from that. So I'll say, take the customer journey, but also teach them for themselves how to handle this data and destroy the data if it's no longer relevant.
It's amazing hearing some of the things you're mentioning. I really love the connection you're making between trust, project management, and the world you live in with cybersecurity consulting and penetration testing. I have to imagine it's probably one of the most sensitive, somewhat uncomfortable or awkward situations, for a company to be in, working with you, having you do this type of penetration testing, and then almost just like crossing their fingers and hoping, everything works out.
Yeah.
So, um, it really resonates for me why this is so important. I think it's brilliant that you've latched on to differentiating in the market based on this topic. And you mentioned Tresorit Engage, and so that's one of the products that we brought to the market recently over the last, 4 to 6 months. And not only were you one of the early adopters, but you're, one of the power users that we have today. And I think it would be really insightful if you could talk a little bit about the evolution, not just of your company, but sort of the tech stack and the tools that you've used, and what were some of the pain points that eventually led you to deciding, I think I will participate in this early adopter program.
Yeah, that's a very good question. So, in the old days, we really had issues on how to get, the customer reports and all the evidence associated, so technical evidence, safely to the customer. So in a secure way, with file collaboration tooling. Um, on top of that, recently, the shift in the entire world is different, especially in Europe. And you need to take that into account. There's still a high trust, so you can't just email a security report to someone. That's an absolute no-no. So you need to look for ways to how can we do this secure? Can we do it ourselves? So before using Engage, yeah, we did saw customers emailing us stuff, sensitive stuff, while email isn't secure at all, ever. So, that we kind of so are we going to tell the customer how to do stuff because that will be kind of education them, and that could go wrong. Some people don't like to be educated. So you need to be extremely careful on that one. So we moved to Tresorit as basically as soon as it came out with just the file collaboration back then and sent in two versions an internal Tresorit for our internal people and an external Tresorit for sharing and allowing the customer to board and download the report or data they want. And this was still a bit cumbersome. It was a major improvement, of course, on just emailing stuff or other ways. But it helped us a lot. And over the past few years, we still had customers in onboarding having some issues and challenging, resorting sometimes to Teams sharing or OneDrive or the WeTransfer stuff, etc., etc. Some mature customers luckily had other products that they used internally to work with, but that means that we needed to log in into their platforms, which was time consuming, didn't always work. Sometimes not the right people were involved. So from a project management kind of view, that was cumbersome. That's annoying to say the least. Um, so when Engage started I believe the first emails came and they're like, oh, we were busy with this project. We already were in the process of kind of suggesting, okay, maybe we should build something ourselves then. It's a typical entrepreneur thingy that if it's there, we should do it ourselves.
Mm-mm-mm.
But I'm also a realist, maybe because I'm Dutch, but I say, that's going to cost a lot of money and it's not our focus. Yes, we can program, but we typically break stuff. We don't build stuff. We try to break stuff and do that in a testing methodology and then tell the customer it's broken and how to fix it. Building something is a different show.
Yep.
Then we need to do it securely, which is a key major thingy. And then you need your typical audits yourself as well. So that's a very expensive show. So when the emails came like, oh, we got Tresorit Engage, I immediately started boarding it and buying it because I saw the use case and had like, oh, we're gonna jump this in. And then funny thing is that from a technical point of view, because I'm a technical person, everyone was in place, but then we needed to adopt project management to it as well. So I tested with some real cool customers I have. Some of them very tech savvy, some of them not at all. No, they don't even want to use a computer basically. And most of them had no issues or maybe one help mail to board and stay board. So that was really my trigger to say, okay, this is very easy because once they're boarded, they're inside this engage room that we can share the information, we can share procedures, tasks, they can easily upload stuff. And we're in control on who has access and actually can audit it. And that was very important for us as well. So as soon as we deliver a project with a PDF report, for example, we have a audit log that shows that the customer downloaded it. This is important because if the customer then decides to put it on GitHub, that's not our problem.
Right.
Doesn't
Yep.
happen, but just in case. So legal was happy as well because we could show, no, they downloaded it. It's off our chest. So the whole procedure then needed to be adopted into project management, and I foresaw that we would need several months to adopt to it, but it was so straightforward that we're basically saying we're just going to do just this. No more
Mm.
file collaboration on the old way, but all through separate customer engaged platforms within
So
Tresorit. So yeah.
yeah, and a little bit of what I'm hearing is, you had multiple tools that either you and your team were using or the customers were using. Even though you were differentiating on project management, that made it more difficult for you and the team. And as you said earlier, if you're doing hundreds of penetration tests per year, one breach or one lost file or you know the ship sinks at that point. Your brand, your reputation, everything is sort of dead in the water. And I think what would really connect the dots in this journey that you're talking about is if you could sort of walk through one of those typical workflows. So, from the moment you're approached or you're approaching someone who might be interested in working with Secwatch, sort of talk through whether, yeah, maybe a penetration test. Like, what
Yeah,
does that
sure.
typical day-to-day or project look like for you?
Yeah. So obviously it all starts with sales and marketing. So the classification is we have a solid lead. Somebody is really interested, maybe only does two or three quotes requests for two or three penetration customers, which is a healthy thing to do. Sorry, two or three penetration testing companies
Yep.
they ask for. So we see then, okay, this customer needs to be taken into the journey right away. This is not security, this is marketing, right? But you need to adopt a nice portal, for example, show them, okay, here's your quote, here's how we work, these are our requirements and procedures, this is what we expect from you, this is what you can expect from us. And we have that in a template. So a new customer comes, yes, they're very interested, it's a good and cool project. We right away start an engage environment for them. If it doesn't get a deal, no harm done, could happen. We destroy that and it's, gone. Poof. Nobody can ever access that data again.
Mm,
Um, if they do become a customer, then obviously we need to do an intake. That's where the security part begins because that's where sensitive information can be shared. And then we move them through the project with tasks, for example, and assign tasks. So sometimes we need something from them. We simply assign a task and say, okay, we need this kind of data to start a project before end of date XYZ. From there, everybody's happy, probably, and we start the project, and the testers, do what they have to do. And from there, basically, we do project updates. So we're currently in this stage of the project, we're doing this or that, etc. And then we move on to the reporting phase, and distribute the final report and all technical data for them, so they can reproduce any finding they have. Because we do think that penetration testing is a test, when therefore it needs to be, reproducible and auditable.
mhm.
So this is a lot of data. Sometimes you're talking several hundreds of megabytes on scripts and evidence and logs and stuff like that.
Yep.
That we need to sign off as well with checksums and stuff like that, because we want to make sure it's not changed down the way. We also tell then the customer how to validate that. And all this data is inside one Engage portal. So they can easily look into the portal and do their project management on their side as well. So it makes for a better workflow and a clearer information show on that way.
Mm,
Um, well, typically there will be a retesting phase. So maybe after a month or something, the customer wants some retesting done, and no, the data is still there, the portal is still there, we update stuff. But if they don't, we simply say, okay, let's bounce off the project, and after 90 days we close access, and for example, 180 days we destroy all content.
mm. That's really interesting. I didn't realize in the conversations we were having that you're using Tresorit Engage sort of as like a sales room, in the very beginning, and then you're like transitioning into onboarding and then the project itself. And I know and I remember during that early adopter phase, you and your team were really amazing. You gave us tons of feedback. And some of that feedback you gave us actually fed into the recent release we had with Treasured Pages. And I'd be curious, sort of, because you had experience with Treasured Engage before the feature, what has Treasured Pages done for you within Engage? Have you started to use it?
Yeah.
And yeah, what's your
Yeah,
experience
well,
been like?
Within Engage, we typically had a front page where we can put some stuff, but we have a lot of information to share. So we kind of struggling where should we make all kind of PDFs, which nobody typically downloads or reads, It's annoying, let's be honest. And we wanted to have a way to just log in, see the relevant information. And if there's sub-relevant information for the project, you could click somewhere. So yes, we've been asking, can we do a linking to a website or a tool or something else and stuff like that? And then pages came. So what we do with the pages on so long-term contract pen testing environments or security operation environments, these are long-standing projects, and still the documentation is alive. You need to update stuff. Something changes, so change management is important for us as well. And with pages, we simply build, or simply, but we build some really cool workflow around that to, give the relevant documentation to the customer right inside that portal.
Hmm.
So it becomes some kind of a SharePoint knowledge-based environment that holds all the important information like agreements, service level agreements, scope of services, project flow, etc. And within Pages, making a template, we can simply copy paste all that stuff to each customer, adapt it to the project they have, and personalize it for them. So they log in, they see their logo. They log in, they see their names. They log in. I don't have to explain the marketing part, but it's the journey.
Yep. Yeah, it's always so great to be able to have conversations and understand sort of market problems and the needs of the customers, and then get to a point now where we see it come to life and we see it helping. Could you talk just a little bit about, you know, okay, we had sort of some pain and challenges before you adopted Tresorit Engage.
Yeah.
Now you've been utilizing it, you've walked us through it. What are some of the outcomes? Like, what has been the impact for you, from a tangible, you know, you're a co-founder, you're running the company. So if you take a step back, like, what's it net out? What does it mean to you and your business?
What from a business side of view, anything that makes it easier saves money. So, for example, if you were doing project management to board a client and it took an hour, and you can now do it in 10 minutes, it's efficiency. So when you have efficiency there, you have information and communication, which are key. Doesn't matter what business you're in, if you don't communicate right and don't share the right information in an easy way, yeah, you're probably gonna lose from the competition, right? So within all those penetration projects we do, these are keystones to be as efficient as you can because, let's be real, there is competition. And our work as penetration tester, it isn't a secret. Basically anyone can do it. There's tons of information and tooling in open source. There's tons of YouTube information, etc., etc. So the technical aspect isn't a secret. So you need to differentiate on other stuff, and that's reporting. The end product, of course, for us is the report. Um, and that's very important. And again, the customer journey there. If we need to explain a report 2 or 3 times, probably we've done something wrong. You know, so if you can, do the planning around that, do the report discussion with the client and walk them through. Yeah, it makes the process much more efficient because they can directly, put in comments or feedback or questions you can prepare for your meeting.
Mm,
So your after meeting, typically maybe 1.5 hour, could also be reduced because you can prepare with the customer. What are your questions?
mm.
Yeah, it makes things a lot easier.
That's great to hear. Um, when we talk about cybersecurity and penetration testing and these certificate reviews and compliance, you mentioned there's lots of competition out there. Um, for for companies that are looking at who to partner with, or if you had a message that you wanted to share with everybody, what to consider and what to think about, what would that be? Like, what would be some of the main takeaways that you would share?
Yeah. Well, typically customers are looking at references, but the problem with companies like us is that we're actually have an NDA with basically anyone and everyone, long-standing. So references and customer references, stuff like that, is very difficult to come by. We do have them, but they're typically not on the website. So if you're gonna look for a good company, you typically look on certifications. If they have some branch logos on there, you can check out. Um, the people that are doing the test need to have certain certifications you need to be aware about. You need to be able to check them because we can all say, "Here's my resume," but doesn't mean it's true.
Hmm.
Second most, I think that good penetration testing company really takes you on from the beginning with good information. So the moment you try to ask a quote, there should be an intake, and they should be really listening, not sending, but
Hmm.
listening to your problem or questions and help you with it. We see a lot of customers asking us for a penetration test, but they are not ready for one. They're asking for an assessment. and you need to help them understand that. So a company, a penetration testing company should be able to do that. And obviously, testing is the magic word. So it needs to be auditable. There need to be time logs. And in the Netherlands currently, we have a initiative on that that's called Meow,
Hmm.
and it's designed by some very respectable people, and all voluntary. And basically, what they say is that you need to be able to be the auditor of such a project.
Hmm.
So the project needs to comply to this Meow framework. And it's not a framework like P-test or OWASP or others. It's just,
Okay.
for the customer. This should be the case. So and so it should be tested. These standards has to be used. And penetration companies need to address in their reporting as well. We did test it, but there was no result. And we
Okay.
typically see that they did test something, but they never mention in the report because, you know, um, no results. So why
Yep.
mention it? No, that's not how testing works. You tested it. The evidence is there's no evidence. That's still a
Right.
conclusion, right?
Right.
And one of the most important things for me personally, basically, is that we never draw a conclusion. There is no
Hmm.
heading inside our reports that says a conclusion. No, the conclusion is for the customer to make, not for us.
Hmm.
We're not
That's
we're not a
interesting.
boss. We're not auditors. We
Yeah. Yeah.
just, feed them. This is the test. This is the test result. That's it. The conclusion is for the customer. That's a different show. There's different people who are very good in, bringing it to their business. So those I think are the key takeaways currently. On top of that, most recently you mentioned vibe coding in the beginning and stuff like that, and AI.
Yep.
And I've seen reports that were built by AI.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And I see AI. We use it, and there's no shame in using it, but you have to do it responsibly. And of course, you need to be very tech savvy in terms of how to use it and apply it.
Yep.
It's a tool, like whether you use an Nmap scan or you need to use some exploitation script. You need to know the script. You need to know the code. You can't just pull something from GitHub, see some Chinese characters and say, "Oh well, I can use this in production." You
Yep.
can't do
Yep.
that. And there's a lot of memes in our, like rig rolling and stuff like that
Yeah. Yeah.
happens. So as a good tester, you can't do that stuff. You need to know what you're using. You need to know how you test it. And the customer typically needs to know how to audit that. So time logging is very important. All kinds of stuff is key to
Yeah.
understand what actually has been tested and how it's been tested and why the tester has a certain result or conclusion on that specific vulnerability he found and how he exploited it. And if then somebody else does it on the same way, the conclusion or result from that test needs to be the same.
Hmm. Yeah.
Simple as that.
Yeah.
That's testing.
That makes sense. If I were to just maybe, I know we're coming to the end here, but we talked a lot about audit logs, both in the context, you described where in Tresorit Engage, if you can see in the audit log that someone downloaded the report,
Yep.
you have a sense of relief, the legal team, like everybody, has that sort of sense of relief. You also talked about before Tresorit Engage, there were lots of different tools and customers were sending emails and things of that nature. Have you seen an impact on that? Like, has there been a reduction on your customers, using email and these other tools and it's been sort of yeah, a problem of the past or at least reduced?
At least reduce for us, yeah, certainly. Of course, customers will still do that. But you sometimes you have to explain why we do what we do.
Okay.
And they're really then like, oh yeah, basically you got the point there. I never thought about that. And that's always an awareness win for me. Um, I even do it with colleagues, we use the traffic light protocol for that, for example. So, if it's white, you can email it. But if it's TLP amber, it has to be done through Tresorit.
Mm, interesting.
There's no exception to that.
Yeah. So you even have
Um,
internal policies with your
yeah,
colleagues.
yeah.
Yeah.
I'm from basically I was schooled in avionics, so aerospace,
Oh.
and they are on security quite heavily on checklists and stuff like that, and you know you need to follow those. You can't say into sit into a plane and the engine shuts down and then try to flip some switches. No, there's a checklist to do that. Um, and I thank Breno the Winter for this, one of my peers who just made a book on that.
Hmm.
That information security, but IT as well, should work that way, the same way. There's nothing new about it. And a lot of the terms we know, like firewalls and stuff like that, are from the Spitfires, just to make sure that the pilot didn't burn away when his engine caught fire.
Oh, that's
So
so interesting. I didn't connect
there's
those
nothing
dots.
new about it, but we need
Yeah.
to educate and maybe tell ourselves that follow the procedures, educate
Hmm.
people, and there's no stupid questions. If there is, there's only a stupid answer from somebody.
Hmm.
And I think that's very important to follow those testing methodologies, but also in your project management, in your communication to clients, you
You
know,
know,
simple stuff
it's
for
amazing,
me.
Hank. I think your sort of connection that you just mentioned with aviation really directly ties to how you've been able to succeed with Secwatch and the whole project management, like everything's sort of coming full circle here.
Yeah.
It makes complete sense. I find it really fascinating. I want to thank you, everyone who's listening. Thank you, Hank, for like everything you've done with us from being an early adopter to spending some time with us today, sharing your knowledge about penetration testing and what people should think about. For anyone who is listening, feel free to check out the other videos on YouTube. And if there are questions, don't hesitate to reach out, whether it's to Hank or to myself and Tresorit. So yeah, thanks, Hank. I don't know if you have any closing remarks you want to share.
Stay safe.
Yeah, physically and digitally.
Exactly. Exactly.
All right.
Thank you.